y'all lose?
I was sitting right here. I'm over here.
Okay, so we still got everybody. Okay. All right, now we're going to talk about individual rights. And basically, what you need to understand, the rights that I'm fixing to read for you right now, you're going to listen to it and you're going to go, okay, yeah, we all got that. Our individuals have the same rights that everybody else has. All of us have. Okay? Now, when you look at individuals like Dale that have legal guardians, they still have the same rights, except having a legal guardian just simply means that your family helps you exercise these rights. Dale cannot sign a release to provide information to somebody because the court has said that he is not competent to give consent for anything. So his family then has to sign something. So if you ever go somewhere and like a doctor's office or anything says he needs to sign a release, he can't sign a release. You understand that? His family would have to do that. I'm not sure about Rex. I'm not Rex's. So
His stepdad is his
legal guardian? Okay, so y'all need to know both of these individuals have to have their guardian.
So I know more about him.
All right, their guardians would have to sign for them. But they do still have the rights. One of those is that they do have the right to exercise the same rights as everybody else. They have the right to have general services available to them as everybody else, which means that no longer are there dental services provided through Part Level. No longer are there medical services provided through an institution. No longer are there psychiatric services provided through an institution. All of their services can be provided in the community just like everybody else. And having said that, it's a little difficult to get people to do that, which is why we have psychiatric services set up the way we do, is because lots of times you get out in the community and you have providers that go, no, can't handle it. Can't deal with it. But that was not without us attempting to access services everywhere we possibly could. But they do have the right to try and access those services just like everybody else. They have the right to work, live, educate, and recreate with people that don't have disabilities. Because it used to be that if you wanted to participate in sports, it had to be Special Olympics. It used to be that if you wanted to live in apartments, and people that have done this for 30 years like me, if you lived in apartments, you lived in a set of apartments where everybody with disabilities lived in the same apartment complex. That's how brownstone was back years ago. When I worked in the field doing direct services, you had brownstone where you had 37 people that lived in one apartment complex. But now we have people living out on their own all the time. You know, and they live out in the community among everybody else, and that's the way it always should have been. They have the right to own, possess, and have their own personal property. They have the right to have services in a safe and humane environment and to interact with members of either sex. That's one that started this year because, you know, years ago it was like they did not look at people getting married and people having relationships, and that was just, it was unheard of. And just in the last probably 15 years, I have been in more weddings than you've ever seen. I have been in so many weddings where our individuals have gotten married to each other, to other people, and have had children. I have been there when their children have been born. You know, and it is wonderful to see that the world is finally evolving and realizing that our individuals are people just like everybody else. You know, it's kind of refreshing to see that. You know, we have had weddings, we have had funerals, and we've laughed together, we've cried together, we've raised our children together, and it's finally refreshing to see that our people are actually being treated like people, because for so long that hasn't been the case. But that's something that a lot of people like myself have fought for years, is to actually see people treated like people. And so that's a really good thing to see, and the push for these rights has been something that we've done. They have the right to be paid the value of the work that they perform. And this doesn't sound like, and of course everybody's like me, they go, well, sure they should. But then you go into these sheltered workshops and they're working all day long, making tags or putting labels on bottles, and they're paid 18 cents an hour. Yeah, they would do it off of a piece rate. You know, they would do a time study on them, and they would be paid a piece rate for it. Or they would be doing hangers. They'd be paid 12 cents to do 15 hangers. You know, it's like That doesn't seem fair. But now we have people, in fact, I'm really quite excited because I have a young man that's been wanting to work for so long. He's wanted a job for so long. He's done volunteer work at the soup kitchen. He's worked with Habitat for Humanity. He's done Meals on Wheels. He has done everything in the world. I've gone through the Peace Program trying to get him a job. They wouldn't take him because about 3 years ago he had a really bad behavior. I had a really bad behavior 3 weeks ago, and I still work. Probably, if I counted it up, I probably had 1, 2, 3 days ago, but nobody knows it. But they're going to hold that against him. I've gone through ADRS to try to get him a job, and they won't hire him because Peace said he had a program 3 years ago. And finally, I just went, I'm just sick of it. So I just finally started calling around people that I knew and got this construction company on the phone and went, hey, this guy's a workhorse. I mean, you seriously a workhorse. What you got? And they said, well, we go in and do construction work. We need people to clean up behind our construction workers. And I went, he'll work. He'll work. I'll put a job coach out there with him. That'll make sure that he's got that job down pat. I want him paid minimum wage, just like the rest of your workers. And they're like, hey, sure, can he pass the drug test? He can pass a drug test. They're interviewing him Tuesday. He passes the drug test. He's got the job. Guess what? Called ADRS. I need y'all to close his case so that I can get the money through the waiver for personal care on the work site and put him to work. And they're like, well, wait a minute now. You got him a job? Yeah, I got him a job. Well, now, we can run him through ADRS. No, you had your chance. Mm-hmm. You didn't take him because he had a behavior 3 years ago. Well, now, since you got him a job, no. Give him a letter. Give him a letter. Give him a letter. They don't want to give him a letter. I'm going to have a behavior.
That's what I was just thinking.
I finally got my letter. So I didn't have to have behavior. But he has a job. He has a job making minimum wage. Now, I don't want his SSI cut out, so I'm going to write a pass for him with Social Security to cover his transportation, his uniforms, and blah, 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 which means he's going to be making minimum wage. But because I can take all these expenses out of it, he'll still be drawing X amount in Social Security, so he'll still get to keep his Medicaid. So his waiver will still be intact, and so he'll be making yahoo money with just maybe this much SSI, but he still has some Medicaid stuff. We're in great shape. They said he couldn't do it. He is going to make a dynamite worker. So I'm sitting here the other night at my house going, I can put him to work. I got that 12 I can put to work. I put work crews here and here and here and here. We're just going to take over customers. I just got 25 men. I'm just going to have my own work crews and quit working.
Just need a business for them to
That's
work
exactly
at.
right. I actually went into my director and said, y'all got an empty office down here. How much can we rent it for? And we'll just run our work crews right through there. We're talking about it. We're talking about it. We should talk about it. She thinks I'm crazy. Okay. They have a right to exercise their rights without reprisal. And basically what that means is, if I tell you I got the right to do something, I shouldn't be afraid that you're going to come up later on and try to make me feel guilty because I'm exercising my rights. Does that make sense? I come up and go, but I got the right to tell you no. I shouldn't be afraid that you're going to go, well, you know what? If you go and tell somebody this, I'm going to do that. Because, as staff, as bad as it sounds, I have seen staff that do intimidate. It's bad to say, and let me tell you, folks, and you're new, some of you are really, really new, you will see it. You don't want to see it. You're going to hate that you're going to see it, but you are. Because not everybody works in this field, does it with the heart to do it. A lot of people work in this field because it does pay the bills.
And if you see it, please report it.
Yes, we're fixing to get into abuse and neglect, and that's when you're going to see me really get on my soapbox, because 30 years in the field, I've seen some really bad things. But reprisal, if you ever see that, and we are going to talk about that. They do have the right to confidential handling of their personal, financial, and medical records. That means everything about the folks that you work with is confidential. That's hard to do. That is so hard to do. Because you want to go home and go, oh, let me tell you what so-and-so did today. And you got family there at home. And you know this. And then you've got to know. Y'all got to know working in a little big town like Berry. It is so hard. It is so hard. Especially with my children growing up. My children, it is difficult when you're in a house and you want to go home and my kids go, how was your day? You want to go, but you can't. Because their lives are confidential. They are. Our private lives are confidential. Wouldn't you be pissed if everybody went home and told everything that you did during your day? And it's hard. But it's personal. You don't want anybody sharing your business, and you don't share theirs. Now, granted, at some point in time, you may run into them out somewhere. I've been in the mall before with my 14-year-old daughter and run up on individuals that are in my caseload. And they'll come running up, hi, Miss Ida, you know, and I have to go, hey, how are you doing? And then you go, what do I do now? And they'll run up and they go, is this your daughter? And I'm like, yes, it is. And usually one of my individuals go, I'm so-and-so. And I'll go, yes, this is my friend. And they'll introduce themselves. And bless their hearts, 9 times out of 10, my individuals go, Miss Angel's just the best caseworker in the world. You know, and they've let the cat out of the bag. But I haven't done it. And I try not to get it, stop, but they don't. But you don't take that stuff home. You don't take that stuff home and tell your families. You don't go, this client that I work with does. Don't do that. You don't want your business out. You don't want anybody's business out. If somebody calls this house and says, I need information on so-and-so, you don't give any information out. Val calls and you know Val, of course, that's fine. If somebody calls and says, I need information, who is this? If you don't recognize that voice or anything, you don't give me information. Somebody comes to that door and goes, I need to come in and look at the record. If you don't know that person, ask for an ID. If it's a state advocate, if it's a liaison from RCS2 or something, they're going to have a badge with them. Okay? I was liking coming up out there a while ago because she's like, and who are you? And I wasn't telling her anything. Oh, I'm Amy. I was just waiting to see what she's going to do. She was keeping hounded, but she was going to know exactly who I was. She was like, and are you so-and-so? I was just waiting. So do you do this? So you're just visiting?
But the reason I asked was your face was so familiar, and I was like, where do I know her? You know, when you start talking, you said, hey, I said, Sarah, that's what I figured. You remember what baby, remember you remember she tore off her arm, we had to call you that night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's unforgettable. But she was going to keep on to you, and that's what you want to hear. You want somebody that is going to pin you down. Who are you? Yeah, I know, but what exactly do you do? And if they're just going to keep going around a circle, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. You're going to have to show me some identification. And if they don't have any, just say, look, I apologize. I'm new here. I hate to ask you to come back with, let me call somebody. Let me call my supervisor or somebody because I'm new. I'm sorry. You know, because I know y'all are real sweet, especially you. I'm so sorry, let me just call somebody, but you guys stay out here like that. You know, people like me is like, oh, I'm sorry, you just don't come
My
back.
first day, I heard a motorcycle pull up here, and I ran out and met him. They didn't get up on the front porch. I said, excuse me, but who are you? He said, I'm Terry, and I own the place. Who are you? I said, no.
See, if it'd been me, I'm like, dude, you got it. Let me see, let me see how, okay, so, all right, come on, next time you need it. Yeah, but I mean, you have to do that. That's what you have to do. And I'm going to tell you something.
This is my first day.
As much as they may squint their eyes at you, the state will appreciate the fact that you do that. They really will. They want to see that you, confidentiality. You know, you want to have those books back there in an area where they aren't. Now, that's one thing I'm going to give AHIL. You walk in here at Ahill, I'm not seeing stuff laying out here, just laying around for somebody to walk in and see. You got to go through that closed door to get to it, and that's a good thing. Because that is confidential handling of records and stuff, and you do want to see that. But you ask somebody, if somebody calls on the phone, you don't recognize that voice, don't give them nothing. If it ticks them off, they just ticked off. If they call their supervisor and state goes, one of our liaisons called, you wouldn't tell them nothing. I don't know your liaison. I don't know who your liaison is. You might want to send your liaison out and tell them to introduce themselves. Maybe send me a list of who your liaison. That, like the regional office, they have certain people designated to certain houses when they come out and monitor.
The connection between the state
and you.
The client is the liaison.
Yeah, or your case managers like me. You know, we'll go out and monitor and everything. So, yeah, and we usually have ideas. I don't have an idea. I lost mine sitting right here today. Somewhere. They have the right to privacy of mails, phone, communication with visitors, which means if his family comes to visit, they can go back in there with him and sit in his room and talk without you in there. if they get a phone call or whatever, and not in his particular case, I mean, he may well take the phone back in there and close the door, and that's fine. This is a lot for our individuals that are verbal and do talk and everything. They can take their phone and go to their room and talk without you listening. If they get a letter in the mail, you hand them their letter unopened, whether you know they can read it or not. Now, you do have the right to say, "You've got a letter, would you like for me to read it to you?" And if they say no, you don't. They have the right to that privacy. You wouldn't want anybody opening your mail. I got a 14-year-old who would be coming across the yard going, "Yeah, letter, you've been opening." No. She didn't understand that till she had a boyfriend. He left a note on the door. "You got a letter, you've been opening." Yeah, she's learning now. She wouldn't touch that mailbox anymore. Yeah, but I mean, they have the same rights, but we take that for granted. We take that for granted as staff. We seem to think that we have the control. We seem to think that they mind us. And we tend to forget that, yay, Medicaid pays our salaries. Actually, they do. We're drawing the money off of what Medicaid gives them, so they actually pay our salary. We work for them. So, yeah, we have to respect that privacy and everything that they have for their mail and stuff. They have the right to receive only drugs and medications in accordance with what standards lays out for them. That basically means you're not going to use a chemical restraint. What a chemical restraint is that is something that is used chemically to control somebody's behaviors. Now, in a facility, they do that. We don't use restraints of any kind, first of all, okay? Now, in having said that, please, 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 those of you that have worked with me in another capacity, if you have to call the ambulance for somebody during a severe behavioral episode, and that ambulance person puts that person on a stretcher and they use a restraint, don't call me at midnight and say, "Miss Amy, they're using restraints and we're trying to stop them, do something." I don't tell the ambulance people what to do. Once the ambulance people have them, they're no longer in your care. Okay? Once the ambulance people say, "We're taking them to the hospital," you're no longer responsible. They can use restraints. We can't. They can. All right?
Do we go to the hospital?
Yes, you need to go. I'm telling this house this now because I have had so many fits out that hospital, it's not funny. No, you don't get paid while they're there. Yes, your agency accompanies them to that hospital and you remain there. Okay?
Throughout their entire stay? Is that, if they're admitted?
Until otherwise told differently.
Okay.
Because I have had a lot of agencies who have called or had the hospital call me in the middle of the night and said, "An ambulance has brought somebody in. There is no staff. There is no medical records. We have nothing on this person. And I have shown up at 2 a.m. with somebody laying there and the hospital screaming their head off." Yes, if you are any kind of provider, you need to make sure that your individual is out there with a record and you're providing them as much information as possible for the care of that person.
So if we go to the hospital, or if the client goes to the hospital, we need to make sure that we grab the MAR?
You need to grab every piece of information
And the
you got.
medical chart, maybe.
Every
Okay.
piece of information you've got to answer any question that that hospital might have.
Okay.
And that's when it's okay to share information, right?
You've got releases already signed, or you should have in your record to share information with the hospital.
Okay.
Those should be signed annually. When he signs his releases, you should have one for DCH.
Okay.
His family should be signing one. If that's not one of your routine releases, you need to make that one of your routine releases.
I heard you mention that, the state is approving for them to have a sitter, not the state.
No,
Okay.
the state is not approving them to have a sitter if they stay at the hospital. In we got that on tape.
In rare instances,
There
it
has been a
happened.
rare occurrence
Okay,
in the
okay.
past where we've managed to get that done.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But it absolutely was everything but an act of Congress. But if it has to be done, it has to be done.
And that's
It had
what
to
was
be
said
done.
pretty much.
It had to be done. It had to be done.
Gotcha. Yeah.
In order for him to be stabilized, it had to be done. But when they go to the hospital, first of all, and I'm not even gonna try to explain to y'all the way the financial stuff of all this works, but it is built in, there are absentee days built into the budget for every single individual that is in a group home. And those absentee days are in that budget, so if that person is in a hospital, the group home budget already has money in it, so that somebody can be in there with that person, even if the group home cannot bill. So I frown upon somebody being in a hospital in a group home saying, I'm not going out there because we can't bill. And the state frowns upon somebody that goes, oh, they're in the hospital handle it. Because if that's the way you feel about the individual that you're serving, I have reservations about your compassion for the person that you serve anyway. You should want to provide everything you can to that hospital to get that individual well and get them back. And that's just, I mean, that's human compassion.
So you can have someone out there with you when you're in the hospital?
Yes, because it's already actually built into the absentee rate of your IRB anyhow. Now, getting some of your agencies to understand that is a different story. But, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of your case managers go, well, you know, they can't bill while they're in there. But case managers like me that know what an IRB rate is, we can always pull the IRB rate out and show them. If they're in my caseload, I'm gonna pull it out and go, well, I can show you your absentee rate and show you that, yeah, you're already paid to have them out there. So most of mine don't really argue it because it is built into your IRB rate, into your absentee rate. Okay, they have a right to written consent as far as refusal to participate in research and stuff like that. We don't do research. We don't put our people through research and stuff like that. They have the right to free public education. We have precious few individuals that are public education age in Region 2, but Public Law 94-142 went into effect when I was in college. So it's been that many years that law has been in effect that says a child that is school age has the right to public education until the age of 21, and the school system has to serve them, period, point blank, no arguments. Think you want your chair?
I think so too.
Okay.
You wanna go outside?
They have the right to access dental and medical care, vision and hearing, just like everybody else. They have the right to be fully informed about services and any costs associated with that. They have the right to a grievance procedure, just like everybody else. As an employee, you have the right to grievances. As a consumer, they have a right to a grievance procedure also. If you do something that they don't think is fair, they can take it to somebody above you. If they don't think that's fair, they can take it to somebody above that. Just like you do as an employee. And you hear these things and you think, but Dale's probably not going to do that. Rex is probably not going to do that. You got to remember these rights travel all the way across people like Dale and Rex, up to people like the guy that I was working with today who drove his car to my office for he and I to fill out an application for Mercedes. Who called me today, well, texted me today and said, hey, meet me at CC's Pizza, I'll buy lunch. You know, I have people from that end of the spectrum, you know, to Dale's end, and these rights are the same across everybody. You know, I have individuals that are emailing me, sending me links to their Facebook sites. He was showing me today how to download Tumblr. I didn't know there was anything called Tumblr. You know, so, but the rights apply to everybody across the board, just like they apply to you. You have these same rights, and they do too. That's the key thing to remember. The rights that you have, they have the same rights. They have the rights to access advocacy and rights protection agencies, and they do have this over you. This is one thing that they do have that we don't have. Because those of you that know me from hometown, you know, anything happens to you, like I had a few years back with the wreck, we gotta go out and pay an attorney to take care of everything we got. They have a DAP. And that is a powerhouse attorney association for people with intellectual disabilities. And they live and die to go in there on cases. Years ago, it was a little bitty teeny tiny little town down in South Alabama called Linden. Linden had never had a group home in the city of Linden in their entire life. And at that time, I was going to go down and have to inform the town of Linden that we were going to open a group home in Linden, Alabama. And let me tell you, the people in Linden were not happy, so they had called a town meeting. And I figured, 10, 15 people are gonna show up in Linden, Alabama, and I'm gonna go down and explain to them that these people are not dangerous. They're coming out of part load, they're in wheelchairs, it's not like you're, you know, and they're nice little guys, and they're from Linden originally, they just want to move home, you know, and they're sweet, and you're gonna love them, and they're gonna make great neighbors. And then I got a phone call about 5 days out going, you do understand that it's gonna be about 150 people down there, and Channel 6 and 13 are coming down to film it, and I'm going, okay, this is getting better than I thought. And then about 2 or 3 days out, they're like, oh, by the way, People First is gonna go down and picket on the other side. And I went, oh, really? Okay, so now we've turned it into a demonstration. This is getting good, because we have the ticket crews and everything down there, and it's getting good. And when I showed up, I stayed all night in Demopolis, which is a little bit out of Linden. And I showed up, and I looked, and it was more cameras and TVs and people than I had ever seen. And by this time, I figured this is more than I can handle. I had called one of the attorneys from ADAP and went, okay, look, here's the deal. I'm gonna go try to explain this, but from what I hear, it's a lynch mob. Go with me, because I'm going to appeal to their human side, because I can be real sweet, you know. I've got that side. I have to fake it sometimes, but I do have it. It's hard. And then it's gone. But I had it there for a second, and then it's gone. But I was gonna try it with them, you know, do my best impersonation of this really big girl, and explain to them. And then I was taking a lawyer with me, and you explain to them what y'all are gonna do to them if they don't. And I got to Linden, and there was people screaming so loud that they were parting my hair, and I was explaining, these people are from Linden. They've lived in an institution. They want to come home, and they're like, my wife's scared to go out in the garden. They're afraid to get raped and killed. And I'm like, really, they're not rapists. They're not killers. They have an intellectual disability. They're in wheelchairs. They want to live and be in their community. They want to go to church. They want to be able to eat in restaurants. They don't want to live in a facility. They want to. They did everything but throw tomatoes, and I'm sitting here going, but listen, you know, and I'm trying to appeal to him, and finally I went, okay. Bless y'all's hearts. I've appealed to you good nature. I've tried to appeal to you as good country people, you know, to be accepting and be loving and be neighborly. And now I'm going to introduce you to the attorneys from ADAP who live and die to explain to people what happens when you try to violate somebody's rights. And here's Mr. Williams from ADAP who's going to tell you how far they're going to sue the city of Linden underneath the ground if you try to block it. Okay?
So is there a home there now?
Heck yeah, they built it in 2 weeks. The house was already there, we just needed to get it certified and open. And I walked behind him, and I was kind of like, eat that. And that's when the police met me and said, by the way, Miss Andrews, we got a couple cops outside, and want to escort you to your car. Do you want them to follow you to Demopolis? And I went, yeah, I think I do. And so, but I mean, it was that bad, because that was only about 10, 15 years ago. And they did not, people didn't have the right to do that. So they did have agencies and still have agencies like ADAP. ADAP's the reason you got handicapped parking spots. ADAP's why homegirls. ADAP's why there's now elevators in the Fayette County Courthouse. You remember when we didn't have them?
Yes, I do.
You remember when people that were in wheelchairs couldn't get up to the courthouse to get hearing? And the judge would have to come down there and stand at the tag office and look at them over the counter? And the line ladies? Remember when Judge Clary used to have to stand in Judge Oswald's office to have court? Because he couldn't couldn't get up the courthouse because there's stairs? We didn't have elevators in the courthouse. We'd have ramps. That's why.
We do now.
We do now.
Just
Look,
very
okay,
recently.
So this agencies like that do that, and agencies like ADAP come in and help enforce these rights that people have. But those are your individual rights. When you get a chance, flip through it and look at what your individual rights are. You have now been trained on an individual's rights. Anybody have any questions? Anybody ready to fall out before sleep yet?
Yeah.
Girl, I am too dynamic a speaker for you to ever fall out before sleep.
I don't want to
Wake
fall
up.
asleep, but I want to eat.
Oh my God. Just
I am getting hungry
Stop
too.
it.
Okay,
It's about that time.
kill the field. We're fixing to do grievances.